our heads, please. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. O heavenly King, the Comforter, and the Spirit of truth, who art everywhere present and fillest all things, treasury of blessings and the giver of life, come and abide in us, and cleanse us from every impurity, and save our souls, O good one. Heavenly Father, we ask your blessing on tonight's meeting, on every item on the agenda, for discernment. Bless the people who are here gathered. Bless those who are called to make decisions, and grant them discernment on those issues that are put forward. Thank you, Lord, for the ability to assemble peaceably and for our freedom in this nation. Help us to use it responsibly and wisely, and for the good of everyone here in Rolla and for all of our salvation. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. I'd like to open the meeting with the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item on the agenda is an ordinance rezoning lot number 2 of municipal acres, and that presentation will be followed by a public hearing. Tom?
Hello, I'm Tom Coots. You might remember me from last time. I'm the new city planner guy. Just to make you aware, the PowerPoint you'll see is a little different than what you're used to, and I'm a bit more of a briefer speaker than you might be used to, and so I try to keep it short and sweet. And so if there's something you have any questions for me, just let me know. And as I get to know what types of questions you ask, I'll start to include that type of information in my presentations. But so for now, let's get started. So the first request is a rezoning request. The request is actually from Rolla Municipal Utilities. The request is to go from the C1 Neighborhood Commercial District to the R2 Two-Family District. Give you an idea of where this is located at. It's located at the southwest corner of Lions Club Drive and State Highway O. It's almost 2 acres. It's currently not developed. The surrounding property, as you can see on the aerial photo, is mostly undeveloped, except for there is a house just to the south of the subject property. Property, as I said, is currently zoned C1. The request is to go to the R2, which allows for duplexes. The surrounding zonings, you can see in the north is the C1 neighborhood commercial. There's also to the south is some residential districts, and then a little bit further and around the property to the north, you can see is the government zoning. That's the parkland. The future land use plan indicates that the property is appropriate for governmental, public, institutional type uses. The main reason for that is because at the time the plan was developed, the property was owned by the city at RMU, and there wasn't ever any specific plans for the property, and RMU has advertised the property as a surplus property to try to find a buyer for the property. They've been trying for quite a while and couldn't find anyone to buy the property with the commercial zoning. They did find somebody who was interested in purchasing it if it were to rezone for a residential use. So the RMU is asking to have it rezoned so that sale can go through. This is a photo of the property from Google Street View. This is looking toward the southeast from State Highway O at Lions Club Drive. As you can see, once again, the property is undeveloped. The request would be consistent with the adjacent and current and future land uses. Property is currently owned by RMU and is not needed for any public use. It's at the intersection of 2 arterial roads, however, and that is generally where you'd see commercial type zoning. Part of the property is impacted by floodplain, and it has limited access abilities from the 2 roads that it fronts. The potential buyer of the property has discussed access to the property with the city, and the city intends to retain the part of the property that's in the floodplain when they sell it. No plans for the property have been submitted at this time yet, and additional requests may have to go through city council, such as, for example, a plat to subdivide the property. Do you have any questions for me before you move on to the public hearing?
I have one. The write-up talks about the restricted access, ingress and egress to Lions Club, which we're aware of.
businesses I talk to, they're having a hard time bringing the talent in that they need and retaining that talent. And so really our mission's going to stay the same going forward. We're going to continue to take those phone calls. We're going to continue to provide information. There's a number of different reports, workforce studies, different reports that we pull in that we have to have readily available for these businesses when they're calling. But we've come to the conclusion we probably need to do more. There's a number of different organizations in town that maybe publicize what we have to offer here. But one of the themes that we've gotten into is people that are coming from the outside, they're having a hard time finding what Phelps County, the region, Rolla, St. James, what we have to offer. So all of us growing up here from inside looking out, we understand what we have in this area. But if you're from out of the state of Missouri coming here and you're trying to convince your better half, why do you want to move to Rolla, Missouri, or St. James, or Phelps County? There's a grasp trying to take and figure out what there is to offer in this area. So one of the things that, just an example of this, when you look at websites, if you look at RAC's website, if you look at the city's website, if you look at the Chamber's website, St. James and Rolla, and you go out there and you say, okay, I want to know what there is to offer in this area. Some of those websites have some things, some of them don't. Well, if you're from the outside looking in and you're Googling Rolla, Missouri, or Phelps County, Missouri, first thing pops up might be the City of Rolla's website. When you go there, there's not a common link where a person can click on, and it shows all the different things from education to outdoors to basically the shopping centers that we have. The different things that people make their determination on whether or not they want to move to this area. And so what we're looking at is, and this screen kind of displays that, is trying to bring all the players together. The other part of this is you have wasted time. You have a number of organizations in this area. They're all doing the same thing, but they may be doing a little bit different. And so you have this time waste where we could bring those partners together at a 100-foot view, look at what everybody's doing good, combine that information, and have a win. Example of that's your Chamber of Rolla tourism website. They have a lot of stuff on that website, but business development, advertising for business development, or that incorporation of business development into that tourism, it's a little bit different. It has a little bit different theme. So there's other things that need to be added to that outside of that tourism bucket that would take and be what people are looking for. So to kind of come full circle in this conversation, who are we looking for? And this, we're looking for somebody, we kind of smile when we say this, but somebody that's good at holding conversations, that has a business background, probably some type of marketing background would be preferred. Probably both of those are weighted equally. Somebody that can bring people together to sit down and have these conversations. And really what we need to put together is some type of marketing plan, business plan. It's no different than any business. What are we trying to accomplish? What are we going to put together to get there? And what does that look like with the players at the table? The SOP in Pulaski County actually is working at putting together the Sustainable Ozark Partnership, a website much in this nature. And there's grant money for that. So there might be some grant money that's out there. There would have to be some money injected into this project. But at the end of the day, we feel that it is a need. And from an employment standpoint, the number one thing that I hear a lot of times is I can't find people to work. Simple as putting a link on one website that displays the jobs that are available in the market versus having to go to each business. The convenience of being able to take and go to one spot, pull up what businesses have what jobs offered, and you can put your resume in. The little things will add up to big moves in the market, helping our businesses hire and retain that talent. So we're currently looking for applicants. We're receiving resumes towards the end of July. We're going to be sitting down and having another conversation around those applicants, kind of putting the final touches on exactly what we're looking for, and hopefully have some qualified candidates that we can have a conversation with. But the clock is ticking. Senator is here till the end of the year, And then she has said that she might be willing to stay a little bit longer, but that's really not why you retired.
Or work remotely.
Yeah, but we want to bring you guys up to speed on what we're working on. Once you know that the mission's still the same, we all have a common purpose in this room, is we want to see the growth of economic development here in the region. We want the success of our existing and future businesses, and we're working towards that to see how we can help take some of those pieces off the table that maybe are causing some strain.
I think one of the things that maybe that Ben maybe forgot to kind of really focus on is the fact that because it is employment based, is the employment issue is one of the biggest reasons that people are looking at different communities. What is your labor pool? That it has become more of an impetus for economic development groups to focus on what can we do to help grow that workforce base. And in order to do that, we need a place that people want to come and live, and they want to come or stay and work. And so that's one of the things that this new person will do, is help to not only answer the projects that come in, the questions for potential prospects, but to help promote and promote the community. Not to, in the past, we tried to promote them to site selectors. Now it's a whole different message. It's promoting it to people to make them want to come and live here or to stay here and live. So that's a real crucial piece that's changed in the direction that we're moving towards.
And keeping your existing town full. So you have a number of young men and women that over at RTI that get out of that program, and they basically leave the area. They think they have to drive to St. Louis to make a good wage. You have a number of contractors here in this area that are screaming for qualified individuals. They would do an internship. We've had some conversations with RTI. If you look at, I always go back to history. Mr. Baxter, Kurt Baxter went through that program, very successful. Mike Duncan went through that program. John Hartley through that program. So obviously we have a program that's working. It's producing people that are successful in business. And so a portion of that is just linking those businesses and those young men and women up, and they get to teach them what they want them to know, and they know what they have when they get out of their education, and they have a standing offer for a job when they get done. And so it's little bitty pieces that add up to a lot. And so whenever you're looking at like a Hartman, 50 jobs, well, how many of your small businesses grow 5 jobs, 10 jobs a year? It's not the fancy, it doesn't splash the paper, but as these businesses grow, it's adding to our economic viability of the area. You know, obviously the hospital and the university, they have a large number of people that come in, go in and out of the community on an annual basis. But really, these small businesses, they are putting on a workforce, and whatever we can do to take and help them continue to be successful, that's a large part of what we're looking at.
Can we answer any questions?
For Sandra or Beth?
I'm just curious, what's this candidate's salary going to look like?
The advertised range at this point was 50 to 75.
Thank you.
Just a clarification, I think you hit on it, but I just want to clarify. So obviously in the past we've done more with kind of larger asks in terms of getting the folks that are looking to maybe put a larger new company or building in town or in a town. Now, if I'm understanding, this person, besides focusing on communications, marketing, and placemaking, kind of buys Rolla a place that people want to be.
Exactly.
They're going to be focusing a little bit more on the developing the existing businesses because, like Ben was saying, they're growing, and we might attract just as many or more jobs through growing them as the
Yes.
larger. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yes,
Yep.
exactly.
Yeah,
Hit it on there.
there's another part of that, David. There's a reality. The reality of it is we have very little land that is developable, meaning it's got sewer, water, electric access to. And the second thing is buildings. We basically have one building left.
That is
So
47,000 square foot.
Industrial park is full. So frankly speaking, that's probably what drove us to having these discussions first and foremost.
It's the chicken
Anything
and
on
the
the
egg.
periphery is gonna take billions of dollars
Right.
to create another industrial park.
And, you know, just from my perspective, I think that's really smart to like focus on the businesses that are already here. We do have a lot that are growing, and how can we help them put some more jobs, you know, make the place, Rolla, a place people want to come. The only other question I have was just, you mentioned RTI and some of those things that have been really helpful for developing jobs in our community. Do you see MS&T fitting in? Obviously, it's pretty specialized when people are going to school there in terms of engineering and such, and there's only so many places in town that folks who have a degree in that can stick around and work with. Is there anything, I know there's the small business center that we have, kind of get people to stick around. Is there any push to see if we can get some of our students who might otherwise just head off to St. Louis or farther?
More startups, things like that?
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of what I'm going at.
I think the battle that you fight with that is the starting pay of your students when they get out of school. And so if your starting salary is 60 to 80,000, you've been in school for 4 or 5 years, you have the option of going into a startup where you might make money, you might lose money, or somebody's dangling that carrot. A lot of that, it seems like there's a migration towards that. We've had the conversation about the startups, but it really has not taken a lot of traction. Taken a lot of
There's another
traction.
part of that, and that's the financing. So
Yes.
startups are very, very high risk, and there's a limited amount of financial resources. Clearly, our REC doesn't have any financial resources to do that, so we're not putting, I don't believe, very much effort into that at all.
We did have a conversation with a program out of St. Louis where it basically starts off with like investors in town that would put a chunk of money into that. It would be more like a $10,000 to $15,000 startup. They've been around for like 25 years. They actually administer it. And again, that's just a number of whoever would be putting money into that program. They'd like to see somewhere around 250,000 starting off. And basically they loan that out at a rate, collect that, basically help them try to be successful, and then basically roll that money back over and continue to move that money around. But that's basically about as far as we went. That was kind of, it's a unique scenario. Yeah.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for this report. I'm glad to see what you all are working on. I had a question as a part of your conversations when you were talking about how that on the third slide that quote about drivers are changing to those that are designed to improve quality of place in order to promote the retention and attraction of talent. So as a part of those conversations, were there specific things that they talked about in terms of what cities have done to improve quality of place that is added to that? I mean, I'm assuming it's walkability, affordability,
All the buzzwords,
shopping,
all the same thing, yes. And
any
Housing.
housing is a huge thing.
Amazon
Yes.
is a great equalizer for shopping.
Yeah.
It's affordable housing at all price levels.
Some communities are, looking at how do we promote, housing for folks as opposed to, waiting for developers to come. Not that I'm advocating for that. I'm just saying there are just some that that's what they're really looking at is what are all of the different pieces that it takes to attract and grow those things. Downtown plans to make it more attractive. All of those type of things. So, yeah.
Yeah, aesthetics.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
go back to what Jimmy Dale says at every meeting, when people drive into town and they see paint peeling off of buildings and weeds growing all over the place.
Exactly. Those are all the
That's an
things.
issue.
So it's a
It's
real
100 different
yeah,
pieces, and
yeah,
every
yeah.
one's just as important. It's kind of interesting when you start looking at it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
So when I started in this industry, that was the last thing on our list of things that we wanted to be concerned with. And now it's like, well, things change, as I said.
I just want to thank Jennifer for the job she's done for the
Thank you
city
very
of
much,
Rolla.
Jimmy. Thank you.
She's put her heart and soul in it, I know that, given a lot of her time. And I, for one, really appreciate it and wish you the best in the world, young lady.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
You still have at least one more quarterly report. So.
I don't know about that. I'll just be introducing the new person.
Any other questions?
Has there been much interest in the position? Have you gotten a lot of applicants?
There's a few applications, yes. Quite a few. just sorting through those applications, those resumes to see who would be the best candidate. So.
One other question is, have you looked at any other land that's possibly available?
We did, you know, a couple years or so ago, we had a major effort where we identified what possible tracts of land were there in our area to further develop, and the only piece that we were able to identify is what's called the Crane property, which is at the intersection of St. James and V Highway, and the Rolla Community Development Corporation, as a result of that, did purchase that. So we have that for future growth, but you know there still are a lot of infrastructure issues to take to that. So we're in a position where we do have something to go to.
No, just one other thing too. I just think if the people of Rolla, it can be a big help. And again, what the mayor touched on, the beautification of our city and taking care of what we've got is a big plus when people come into town and see it, and it's looking clean and it's looking neat. The lawns are mowed and stuff like that. It makes a big difference. And I just want to thank the people that have taken it on themselves to do the grass and get it mowed, because it's starting to look better, and the people are taking more pride in their yards and stuff, and I appreciate it. It may be because we're posting them, but that's beside the point.
Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
Moving on to the old business, we have one item, and one is an ordinance authorizing me to enter into a contract with John Megay.
We had the bid award last meeting and the first reading of the ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into the contract. And we are recommending that the mayor be authorized to do that. I'd be happy to try to answer any further questions anybody might have.
Going back again on the side of the sidewalks, Mayor. We had no idea that we was gonna go from, regular sidewalks to driving lanes to walk on. And, Steve, I think it's a waste of money. You don't have that many people riding bicycles. And if that's what you're building those things for, is the people to ride bicycles on, it's a fallacy.
I don't know what to tell you. The ones down in Green Acres and along Dibble Trail are very popular, used by a ton of people.
Not up 6th Street.
And this will allow people to access those areas all the way from downtown out to those parks.
I haven't seen one person walk on 6th Street since you put that walking lane, those driving lanes in up there.
I seen a guy skateboarding on it the other day.
You tell them to go to the
Uphill.
park?
Uphill.
Did you tell them to go to the park?
No. That's what it's there for.
Did he have a helmet?
He did not.
You know, I've even got people talking about driving up on the curbs up there because the streets aren't wide enough now.
Did you tell them that's illegal?
Huh?
I hope they don't do that.
Well, they do it.
Oh, man.
Jimmy Dale duly noted. Any other questions for Steve?
But I just want to make sure that we take a look at before he congregates any more new big sidewalks that he's proposing to the council so we can vote on it.
Do you have any more projects this year?
Yeah, I do.
Not this year, but I have one planned for next year.
Okay.
That's Oak Street, right? I mean,
Yes.
okay. Which would connect downtown to Green Acres Park
Correct.
with a nice path for anybody who wants to use that.
Skateboard, sidewalk, bicycles, people walking, running,
Strollers.
everything, right? Strollers. Sounds right.
There's no other questions? Final reading, please.
An ordinance authorizing the mayor of the city of Rolla, Missouri to execute on behalf of the city of Rolla, Missouri, a certain agreement between the city of Rolla, Missouri and John Maggi Incorporated for 10th Street Concrete Project 463.
Move proposed ordinance pass.
Second.
Motion made in second, roll call vote.
Murphy,
Yes.
Henry,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Williams,
No.
Schneider,
Yes.
Reuter,
Yes.
Mush,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Eberly,
Yes.
Roder,
Yes.
Schott,
Yes.
10 ayes and 1 nay.
Ordinance is approved. Moving on to new business. First item is an ordinance amending section 2767 of the code relating to school speed zones.
Now, this ordinance changes our school zone ordinance to make it a little more palatable for the judge. He wasn't very comfortable issuing or finding people guilty because he didn't like the way the ordinance was worded. We reworded the ordinance and had our attorneys look at it, and I think everybody is happy with it, and we recommend approval.
Steve, the only change is the first paragraph, right?
For the most part. There's some other things that kind of down through the sentence that makes it a little more sense, but yeah, in essence, the first paragraph, the preamble to the rest of the areas.
Yeah, is it the part that's the moved or propelled along? Because I'm guessing for 10th Street, it's people rolling down the hill and gaining speed because of gravity.
Yeah, you can't travel more than 20 miles an hour in a school
Mhm.
zone.
Okay.
There's no other questions, first reading?
An ordinance amending section 2767 of the Code of the City of Rolla, Missouri, known as the Code of the City of Rolla, Missouri, relating to maximum limits established on certain streets during school periods.
Next item is an ordinance authorizing me to execute a contract with Burlington Road.
We've been working on this project for quite some time now. In the past, when we needed to do grade crossing work, we just kind of worked it out with the roadmaster and went and done it. That's unfortunately not that easy anymore, so we have a multi-page contract here that basically says we're going to work with the roadmaster to redo the crossing at 18th Street. I think maybe what put the target on it was the fact that we were doing concrete work in conjunction with the actual crossing replacement. Having curb and gutter and sidewalk on both sides of the crossing, and that may have triggered the need for this contract. To be honest, I'm not quite sure, because we've done this kind of thing in the past.
So the state's forcing the contract between us?
MoDOT is, yeah. Mhm. We weren't required to do it on 6th Street when we redid that one, or 8th Street, so I mean, it's just luck of the draw, I guess.
Any questions for Steve? If not, can we have the first reading?
An ordinance authorizing the mayor of the City of Rolla, Missouri to execute on behalf of the City of Rolla, Missouri, a certain agreement between the City of Rolla, Missouri and Burlington Northern Santa Fe, BNSF for the 18th Street sidewalk improvements.
Next item is an ordinance approving the final plat of Rolla subdivision. Tom?
Hello, Tom Coots again. I'm gonna go through this one kind of fast because once again this is a minor subdivision, so it's a request from SED Investments. It's located at the corner of Rolla Street and Elm Street, north side of Highway 72. It consists of 3 properties. They're sort of combining together and then going to split off two lots to sell off separately, and then also dedicate a portion of the property to the city. Property is zoned C2, which is one of the commercial districts. This is the final plat. You can see 2 lots. Their property is impacted by floodplain on a portion of it. That's the blue line I just brought up. And this yellow area is the area that they're proposing to dedicate to the city. They worked that out with Public Works. This is not related to a parks dedication or anything like that. They're doing that of their own volition because they don't, on this lot 1, it's the property that's immediately up for sale, and they don't want to have floodplain on the property, and the city is willing to take on that portion that has a part of the channel and floodplain on it. This is a street view looking north of Highway 72. The building you see on there has since been demolished since this picture has been taken, but it's a mostly undeveloped property. There is a building on the other lot that it doesn't have a buyer quite yet. To summarize, appears to meet all the required subdivision requirements. All public improvements that are necessary development are already in place. It's zoned for commercial use. Part of the property is impacted by floodplain. No plans have been submitted for review. Additional requests could be submitted, but we do know that one of the lots is being looked at by a buyer who'd like to develop it. The stormwater tract is proposed to be dedicated to the city. the planning commission took a look at this, and they did recommend 7-0 to recommend the city council approve the request. I did want to say on my last presentation, I did have these two following slides, so if we want to keep these types of slides, I can keep them. If you want to nix them, I can nix them in the future meetings. But and then the alternatives for this request are going to be to find that the request meets the standards and approve the request and have first reading of the ordinance. Find that it does not meet the requirements, state those reasons, deny the request, or table to a certain date for any information that you need to make a decision. Do you have any questions for me?
Tom, can you go back to the schematic? Is there a reason why, I guess it's the south? No.
Lot 2?
The east side has that strip of land going from lot 2 north?
Yes, you can see that lot 1 is exactly 1 acre in size. The buyer of lot 1 wants exactly 1 acre.
So that's just sort of making it fit.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Jimmy, now?
That whole lot is not in the floodplain.
Lot 1 won't have any floodplain on it. Lot 2 has a portion of the lot that has some
You're talking
floodplain.
about yellows in the floodplain.
Only a portion, a good half of the yellow area is in the floodplain.
Well, I was
But
gonna
that won't
say-
be part of lot 1 when it's all
I was
said
gonna
and
say,
done.
that's never flooded down there.
It's the 100-year floodplain demarcation. It could flood every 5 years, and it could take 200 years to flood. But it's within the FEMA's designated what they call the 100-year, 2%.
It hasn't flooded in 50 or 60 years.
That's the point.
It's 100 years.
Well, the reason I say it is my mom lived down there at that last house that's across right over there on the other block over there, so I know what happened down there.
Sure. But
Are
generally it
you
is.
adverse to the city taking title to that particular portion of
Am I adverse to it?
it? Yes.
Well, I don't know what we want it for. All we're doing is taking something that they don't want and putting it on our burden and not on theirs, because they don't want to have any piece of that land restricted on the floodplain.
Steve, are we taking on any cost or burden by doing that?
Actually, from our standpoint, I would much rather that we own the floodplain rather than have it in private hands, because if we own it, it's not gonna be developed. The developer would have the ability to develop, he'd have to get a permit to do that. But if he doesn't own it, then
So this is
there's no risk of
consistent with what you've
development.
been doing in the last 10 years. Whenever you can get property near a creek.
Yes. It allows them to get cheaper flood insurance, and it also, since we regulate the floodplain, it helps us with the regulation of that floodplain by keeping any possible development out
And
of
are we
it.
gonna pick up any cost maintaining that?
We mow it now,
We mow it now.
yeah,
Why do we mow it now?
just to keep it open to its maximum capacity. I have streams that are marginal in terms of their capacity, and we keep them mowed.
If we don't own it now, why do we mow it?
We mow the stream right now, and it's a drainage easement by use,
Okay.
yeah.
Good with that, Jimmy Dale? That makes sense. Any other questions? If not, first reading.
An ordinance to approve the final plat of the parcels that are known as Martin subdivision through the minor subdivision process, Martin subdivision.
Next item is an ordinance to consider clarifying the term measurement as it relates to liquor licenses. So in our conversations with respect to the dispensaries, infusers, and so on and so forth, we reference our portion of the code dealing with liquor license. The way we have been administering that for many, many years is sort of by policy, the exact wording as how we measure that distance, meaning by the crow, quarter of the building, and quarter building, is not really in that particular section of the ordinance. John tells me that the state doesn't even define it in theirs as well. So in an effort to be consistent, what we would like to is to better define that in the liquor license section of our codes. We'd also like you to consider having a final reading tonight, because there are people gonna be making applications for dispensaries. They have started, but time is running out there. And we don't think it's fair to anybody to have that sort of as a confusing point. My guess is that the dispensaries will have to get something from the city that says wherever they're intending to go is quote unquote in compliance. So this is an effort to sort of clean up everything in one shot. So any questions? David?
Not to reopen a can of worms, but I guess in a sense, I'm in favor of doing this. I just wanted to double check with our law team again that from what Lance Thurman told us last time, it seems like this shouldn't be any issue for us legally.
Well, I think he.
As it relates to liquor.
Well,
It has nothing to do with medical marijuana. That's not what we're asking.
right. I guess I am going back to that just to double clarify the walking versus the 500 versus the 1,000 and,
I don't have anything different to add than
Okay.
what was already discussed.
okay, thank you.
Do we have the first reading?
Sure. An ordinance amending section 4-16 of the general ordinances of the city of Rolla, Missouri, known as the Code of City of Rolla, Missouri, pertaining to liquor licenses.
Move to suspend rules and have final reading, sir.
Second.
There's a motion and second to suspend the final rules. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Final reading, please.
Ordinance amending section 4-16 of the general ordinances of the city of Rolla, Missouri, known as the Code of the City of Rolla, Missouri, pertaining to liquor licenses.
The proposed ordinance passed.
Second.
Motion made and second. Roll call vote, please.
Williams,
Yes.
Jones,
No.
Reuter,
Yes.
Schott,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Murphy,
Yes.
Henry,
Yes.
Mush,
Yes.
Roeder,
Yes.
Eberly,
Yes.
Schneider,
Yes.
10 ayes and 1 nay.
Ordinance is approved. Next item is a resolution authorizing me to execute a memorandum of understanding with Compass Health.
Stephanie?
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity. In April this year, we received our 2019 107-foot ladder truck. It's on the road and doing great. As part of that discussion, about 10 months ago, we had a discussion of increasing the number of trucks we had available to support our operation, and we decided to keep it at 6, go up to a total of 6 in reserve. With that, with the arrival of the new truck, we needed to build a shelter to put our command post in. So we were in that process a couple of months ago, working to build a shelter, which would be about $30,000, which would not be totally enclosed, would not be heated, would be more open to the elements. In that process, Compass Health, which is also known as Pathways, which is just changed names to Pathways, purchased the lot that is west of us. And you see in this picture, this is a picture of the area that they purchased. This is Pathways, this is Fire Station number 1. With that, they purchased this land here with this building and this open area to build a parking lot, exclusively just a parking lot. They had no interest whatsoever in the building. We didn't know that at the time. We just reached out to them and said we were inquiring about what your purpose was, what your intents were. We've been working there with Deborah Frost, Vice President of Operations there, and she's been excellent to work with and been very dedicated to this project. They brought back to us an idea that they would lease us, or they really want to call it a memorandum of understanding, that they would have a memorandum of understanding with us for a 5-year period at no cost to the city of Rolla. So instead of kicking this forward and then in a couple of years having to build a shelter anyway, this puts us significantly down the road to an idea that they were willing to look at no cost. It was a benefit to the city. It was a better shelter. It is heated. They did ask us, it is a 2-story facility, and we are talking about just one of the bays. They would like to retain ownership and the use of the other. Of course, they're retaining complete ownership anyway, but they wanted to use this bay here and let us use this one. To do that, we anticipate a little bit of cost. One of the doors would have to be raised about 2 feet. We need to pour a small pad out in front of it so that the command post doesn't jump whenever it goes into the building. And it would also need to be serviced. On the other side, there's another door that would have to be partially removed. We anticipate that to cost about $10,000. We think that we'll, instead of spending $30,000 on a shelter that's open, we'll spend $10,000 for a 5-year project at least. And the MOU also includes 3 additional years of extension at no cost as well from them. Now that would have to be decided upon by City Council and them as well, but Compass Health has been excellent in this process and worked very, very hard to keep it at no cost to us. And they've pointed that out repeatedly, that they want to make this a great deal for the City of Rolla, Fire Department, the City of Rolla, and that they have no desire to use the building. Take your questions.
I have a question on page E4, point 4, the Rolla Fire and Rescue Department agrees to pay for all utilities. Is that right?
That's correct, and
The entire building?
it would be for the entire building. They only use the building for storage and have no purpose whatsoever for electricity or heating in it at all. And we would keep it at a small minimal heating anyway, just above freezing.
Okay.
We ran the cost on that with some help, and it is between $300 to $500 a month in the worst periods of time. So in the coldest times of the year, it was $300 to $500 a month.
Right. So it could be 12,000. 6,000 a year.
It could be, correct. But we wouldn't cool it in the winter or in summer. We wouldn't cool it in the summer at all.
Right.
It would be maintained on its own.
I actually found the answer to my question deeper, and I didn't do enough homework on this.
Okay, no problem.
Thanks so much. That's great though for our community. That's such a great little bond that you have. That's really neat.
Thank you.
So Chief, do you have any security concerns if Compass Health is gonna have access to the other bay and it's open, and you've got your big rig in there?
Great question. And Carolyn's been working with us on this contract negotiation, and memorandum noticed, and she brought that same question up. It will be secured in itself, and that it's locked. And the doors underneath it, the bays that are underneath the command center are also locked. They've also assured us from their point of view that only their leadership would have, it would be secured with our lock, and that they would honor that with just their administration having access to that. So it would have to go through a process for them to obtain the key. To us, that satisfies us. We're gonna have internet in the building from our standpoint anyway. It's possible we could put a camera in there, but I don't think it's needed at this point. A great discussion. We had that great discussion.
See it driving down Lions Club Drive someday and have to call in.
We don't either.
Yeah.
We don't either.
What kind of hardships is gonna put on the partner when you have a partner?
Right now, the command post comes out as a second alarm call, so the personnel that go and respond to that call would just simply drive up the street. It's gonna be plugged in, it's gonna be, it's gonna have serviceable power, so that it's gonna have, just like it sets today. So it's not gonna put a hardship on us other than it being a different building, and you'll have to gain access through that. But that's gonna be minimal.
There's no other questions? Can we read the resolution?
A resolution authorizing the mayor and city of Rolla, Missouri to execute on behalf of the city of Rolla, Missouri, a memorandum of agreement between Compass Health Inc., DBA Compass Health Network, and the city of Rolla, aka Rolla Fire and Rescue Department.
Mr. Mayor, could I say?
Yeah, resolution passed.
With the help of our legal team, they've been phenomenal in passing this back and forth. We've had a lot of discussions with that. Just know that your counselor here has worked very, very hard, and she's not been it's not been softballs that have been coming out. She's been working through that. She's protecting the city of Rolla, and you should know that. She's been working very, very hard.
He's a
And
big guy, throw fastballs.
she's been throwing some fastballs.
If you could pass on the thanks from council for Compass Health doing this too.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor of the stated resolution, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Next next item is a resolution authorizing me to execute a memorandum of understanding with the South Central Regional Veterans Group.
So the original agreement between the City of Rolla and the South Central Regional Veterans Group is up for renewal. We initially entered into this in 2009, and then we did a 5-year renewal in 2014. We've had some minor updates, just to clarify some points, and some changes over the years relative to mowing and things like that. Greater responsibility on us. A lot of things continue the same with the veterans continuing their fundraising efforts. They still have several things that they want to finish and accomplish in the park. One thing they definitely wanted to stipulate, and we put in the agreement, was that at the point that their fundraising and their efforts finish, they want those funds, once they're turned over to us at the conclusion, to be dedicated specifically for this park. They're going to continue their involvement in the different observations like Memorial Day, Veterans Day, POW and MIA, those kind of things, AUSA, a lot of those activities and events that continue there at the park. So we're just asking for your approval to renew the agreement again, and we'd be glad to take any questions. I have with me here Glenn with the Veterans Group, and he certainly can provide any answers probably better than I can.
Glenn, what are the next couple of projects in the division?
We are down to the last few projects that we have going on. Our largest project that we are currently raising funds for is a large pavilion over the existing seating area that's down there by the Pentagon. That is what our biggest fundraisers are for now. Estimates on that are anywhere between $40,000 to $60,000, depending on which individuals we speak with. The other projects we have, 'cause last fall we voted to determine the projects that we were going to do and do no more. Number one was the pavilion. Second was a Congressional Medal of Honor monument. Third was a Gold Star Family Monument. The fifth was an index for all the bricks that are out there. We have currently a little over 1,000 honor bricks out there. And then we call it a decorative knee wall that will be behind the speaker podium at that location where the pavilion's at. And we have the funds for those projects, and that's what we're currently working towards. And hopefully, as soon as the sidewalks are done, we're expecting to get the pads poured for the 2 monuments that we have. And those are the major projects that we have. We have other minor ones that we're adding a sidewalk from the existing picnic table pavilion, or the picnic pavilion, down to where the flag retirement pit is. We've got a class from Fort Leonard Wood that's planning on doing that for us once everything gets approved. But hopefully within the next 2 years, we will be able to officially turn the park over to the city.
The group has done a fantastic job motivating and fundraising and so on and so forth. But I know there's a lot of unsung heroes that actually do the work and volunteer, the construction and bring materials. At some point, we really should find a way to recognize them. So I'll leave that with you guys. That's best time. Any questions?
I just second your words, Mayor. Job well done.
Can we read the resolution?
Resolution authorizing the mayor, City of Rolla, Missouri, to execute on behalf of the City of Rolla, Missouri, a certain memorandum of understanding between the City of Rolla, Missouri, and the South Central Regional Veterans Group.
Resolution passed.
Second. Motion made and second. All in favor of the said resolution, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Thanks, guys. Moving on to claims and/or fiscal transactions, we have one. One is a motion awarding the bid for stainless steel fencing.
So one notation here, 6 feet. Following bids were received for 558 feet of 6-foot tall chain link fence, schedule 40 pipe 9 gauge chain link, 7 gauge tension wire at the bottom for Bayless Field. And this is the second park that we're doing out of our 4 at the complex. We replaced, with council's approval, Kimmel Field. Bayless is the next one that needs replacing. We are only replacing the outfield from foul pole to foul pole with this one, and that's where you're seeing the kind of the leaning. And we've done a lot of, over the years, some fix-it work that's got us this far. The fence initially was put in 1982, so we're kind of on the last legs for this. We have 2 bids. We're recommending and asking for council approval on the low bid. The difference, there's a significant difference between the two. The reason being that the second bidder is from East St. Louis, Illinois, and their price for the removal alone, which was part of the bid, is almost more than what it is on the other area company that bid. So clearly the difference there is labor, big city versus, and Illinois versus here. I'd be glad to take any questions on this.
If not, is there a motion to award the bid to?
Second.
Motion made in second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Thank you.
Next section, Mayor and under City Council comments.
Do you want the first reading on that ordinance?
I don't think we're doing that. Oh, yeah, we are.
We did.
Yeah, okay, I'm sorry. First reading, please.
And then start discussion about it. To award it now. An ordinance authorizing the mayor, City of Rolla, Missouri to execute on behalf of the City of Rolla, Missouri, a certain agreement between the City of Rolla, Missouri and All Type Fence Incorporated for Verwan Park Fencing Project 495.
Next section, Mayor and City Council comments. Are there any?
I have one issue I'd like to bring up. As we continue on into 2019, we spend month after month talking about all the wonderful things happening, but I believe we're ignoring one of the ones that hurts the most to ignore. We're short-staffed on police, and our police are dramatically underpaid. We need answers to this problem, and we need solution-based answers. If we don't find a way quickly to solve this problem, we'll fall more and more in debt to the opioid crisis and the toll it takes on our community. This is a problem that we should all own. It affects us in the city and those in the county. We are blessed to have great police in Rolla, but we are not showing them the support they desperately need. Our doctors overprescribe locally and beyond the opioids and the drugs that are tearing apart our community. Now we have to own the return on not investing enough in our police force. I'd like to see a committee called together with the administration, council, and police leaders to try and combat these issues of pay and police staffing. We need a solution and direction, not a solution based on future taxes or budgets. Kicking the can down the road is only going to further affect my ward and the city in harmful ways. I'd like to make a motion to assemble a committee to explore solutions to our police pay and staffing issues.
Second. We have a fiscal advisory committee. That's not sufficient.
I mean, has it worked so far? That's where we're at right now. I believe that right now we're in a time where everything that we've done in the past has not worked as quickly as we needed to. I believe that that's why we need to have a committee raised up.
They haven't been asked to look at this, so it's not fair for them to say that it's not working, but neither is it.
I guess the administration maybe should, I don't know. I know that right now I think that this is the next step that we need to take because I believe that we've misstepped and stutter-stepped the whole route.
Yeah. Can I ask to have a follow-up discussion with John President as well? I mean, to form a committee to do what, I'm not sure just yet. But I hear everything that you raised are very legitimate points. I get it. I'm just wondering, do we need a committee when we already have not only the staff, but this council went through a workshop working on a solution to the general fund? I mean, at the end of the day, you can slice and dice this 1,000 ways, but the answer lies in the general fund mechanism. So the question is, do we do we want another parallel issue out there or not? So I don't have the answer to it, but I think John should weigh in on that.
I agree that John Butts should be in the room when this happens, but I don't know that that would stop the council or I don't know if the council would not want to form a committee just to have John. I think that the idea would be to move along and then bring John on board, but I certainly think that something brand new and a new direction needs to be raised up immediately so that we can combat this. I don't think that John being here or not being here is gonna change my opinion on whether or not we need to find a brand new direction right now.
I appreciate that it's council that sets policy. I get it. But at the end of the day, our city administrator operates the city. And I think he should be present to have that kind of discussion. That said, I will defer to council. So
My
there's a motion made,
stands.
and there's a motion second to form some sort of committee to, I presume, what, looking, are you actually addressing opioids, or you're asking to address police pay, or what are you asking?
I would like to address police pay and staffing, but I also believe that that walks hand in hand with the issues that we're dealing with in my ward right now when it pertains to the opioid epidemic.
Okay, so just let me ask one more question, because I'm gonna get asked. So the question is, we've got other departments in the city, and I can think that every one of those other employees are gonna ask about why I'm not making more money. So how do we wanna answer that question?
I believe that the answers to that will come out in the wash, but I know that right now with what's happening in my ward and what's happening with our city, the one that I need to focus on the most right now is police pay and police staffing.
Okay, motion made and second to form a committee to look into the feasibility of raising police pay. I guess that's stated correctly?
To discuss the police pay and staffing.
Okay.
I think we'll find out in the wash that our police pay is dramatically less than where it needs to be.
Okay, the committee is to determine that, or the committee is to find a solution to that?
Find a solution
Okay.
to the problem we're facing.
Okay, so there is a motion, there is a second, I presume, to that?
Second.
Okay, so discussions. Jimmy Dale?
I don't know where Mr. Jones is coming from, but if we can't consider the whole city, then we can't consider just one department. Your ward is not the only ward. There's 6 wards, and which encompasses the whole city. And we've all realized that the city police, biggest part of our city employees, are underpaid, understaffed, but the funds aren't there. So where are we going with this?
Jimmy, I believe that as long as we continue to operate under that giant umbrella of we can't change anybody's pay because we can't change everybody's pay is how we found ourselves in this situation to begin with.
The only way you wanna do it, Daniel, is to have a tax out there. We don't have the funds to pay it, and you know that. You're sitting there wanting a big piece of the pie, and it's not encompassing the whole city. It's just your ward is what you wanted, what you're asking.
It's incorrect. If you listen to what I said my ward and the city, Jimmy. And no one in this city will accuse me ever of just worrying about my ward.
Well,
The fact of the matter is, we have to figure something out. We need to do it pretty quick because we've got some real issues out there. Now, we can talk about mowing the lawns, and we can talk about the fire department, we can talk about all of these things, but we also need to talk about the police pay and the police issues, and right now, that's the one that's hazardous.
you don't think that is on my mind? You don't
Yeah.
think that is on my mind?
Never
about the
accused
fire
you of it not
department and
being.
the police department?
I would hope it is.
It is.
Yeah.
The whole city's on my mind.
It is an issue, but I have to, again, come back to perspective. This is a general fund issue. There are multiple sections within the general fund, and everything that you can say about police, you can darn near say about fire as well.
I think
So-
the fire department is heavily involved, if I'm not mistaken, with dealing with a lot of the opioid.
Well,
And response.
I almost hate to say this publicly, but we shouldn't forget that we are in union negotiations. And we have multiple unions in this city. So I caution you, I beg you, before you start carving up that policy, you think about the ramifications to the other departments in the city. That's all I'm gonna say.
I have not been provided with an alternative solution.
Yeah, no, I just wanna mention like a point of order potentially is that this is, comments from the council, and you're making a motion which might be better, for the rules of parliamentary procedure to be presented as new business. And I'm just looking at it from a procedural standpoint, that's all.
Thank you.
Appreciate the comments, but can you conduct business under comments?
Okay. Duly noted. John?
Withhold based on what Carolyn said.
Jody?
Just a thought, if we already have a fiscal advisory committee, would there not be some sort of way to adjust that or add or make a subset of that to look particularly at the staffing and pay issues?
The answer to that is yes, but I'm gonna come back to what I said. Do not expect something from City Hall to be a specific answer just to police and fire. We cannot ignore the rest of that fund. It's a zero-sum game, guys.
I know John, Joe, go ahead, John.
Thank you. Piggyback on what Jody said, you know, because I've been on that finance committee for a couple of years, and we look at the whole picture. You know, it's a budget for the whole city, the directors are there, and all this is discussed. Everybody brings their requests, their wants, their needs. They figure out what fits in their budget, what they wanna do. Payroll is included in that. I mean, it is discussed.
It's actually not payroll, it's compensation.
Compensation.
My comment is really, I mean no disrespect to any department in the city, but when I think about cities in general, when I think about our country, and we think about issues that come up, problems that come up, things that need addressed in our community, if we don't have police and fire to respond to someone who's hurt working the garbage truck or someone who is working another department, we really, those are our frontline workers. And I don't mean that our other ones are not frontline, but these are the ones that are responding to emergencies and going to the places of danger. I feel like there's a tier there that's really important to make sure for our other staff that these folks are taken care of, so that when we have a response in any department or any part of our city, we're fully staffed and we're able to take on what's necessary. So I think that's one thing I just wanted to mention. I'm not trying to disrespect any other department, but I think if you work for the city or you live in the city, you realize that our front line is those first responders, and that's really important. And so the other thing I wanted to bring up, and I think this maybe is an important time, I understand right now we have nothing that we can pull away from our current situation in the general fund to solve this. At least that's the way that it sounds like folks are saying. I think looking through that and just seeing if there's something that can be done, I know there's a fine-tooth comb goes over all that stuff all the time. But in addition to that, I know something we've talked about, and I know it's gonna come up at other times too. I think this is part of highlighting also why we do need to look at something like the use tax that a lot of other cities have, that have then allowed them to treat their first responders better and get full staff, as well as treat the rest of the departments better and fund all the things that we've had meetings about recently that we are on a 5 to 10 year future not really able to fund. I've had some discussions myself with folks in the business community, other leaders on county and other city levels within our county, and I think it's important that we explore, and fairly quickly, the idea of this use tax for the potential that it can help us make up some of our gaps and fill in some of the gaps we have in all our departments, but for sure specifically at the starting point of police and fire. So I just want to bring that up and just mention to folks that maybe the public that hasn't done the general review that the mayor and John Buss put on a few months ago, that we really do have a lot of gaps, and I think this just highlights where we're at with our police and fire are just two of many examples. There's a lot more equipment we need and a lot more things that we need to support to keep our city running at top notch. And so I'd love to see more folks learn about the use tax and see that moving forward at a quicker rate, so that we can solve some of these problems quicker, as opposed to, as said, kick the can down the road.
So going back to Carolyn's suggestion, Daniel, is it okay if we put it on a formal agenda
Yes.
as new business for next meeting?
And I'm welcome to wait until John Bunce gets back.
Any other citizen or council comments? Citizen communication, is there anyone that would like to speak to city council?
I'm back.
You're back. Please state your name and address for the record.
Jim Corey, 414 Bill Avenue, Rolla, Missouri. We want to talk about destruction of our trucks, trash trucks, city trucks, ambulances and that. Trim that tree on Hutchinson and Bill Avenue. You see it, you're my councilman. And all you do is go to John Butts. You tell John Butts what to do. Jim Dale knows me. Jim Dale and my dad worked together.
For the benefit of the rest of us, what is the issue with the tree?
Okay, we got a tree. A while back, her son told her about the tree behind her house. Mom, you need to cut that tree down before it falls over in a high wind. It's dead. She goes out, buy a brand new car, 50-mile-an-hour winds come through, blows the tree over, hits the fence, falls in my yard, takes out the fidelity cable, runs all the way across from one electric pole to across the street in Hutchinson. Well, it came across that, pulled that pole 6 inches, took out 2 weatherheads off the people's houses across the street, $7,000. Instead of spending $450 to have a tree cut down, she goes out and buy a brand new car. Next day, that tree came down. $7,000 worth of damage. Well,
is this tree on the right of way?
No, the tree was in her backyard.
Because I remember years ago, there was an issue in that neighborhood, but the landowner did not want to spend the money to take it down. Is that the same case?
Same house.
Same house.
They were offered to take that tree down for free. Well, that tree came down. Took out the
Okay, so
electric pole
Steve,
across
do
the
you-
street.
Do you remember what that circumstance was? Was that? I had, my recollection, it was in the yard and people approached the owner, it's a rental property, I believe.
No, it's been, we've been there for 3 generations. We was there when mom and dad, when mom and dad was
The person
there.
that has the tree, is that a rental property?
I'm not familiar with the tree that he's talking about that fell. I am familiar with the trees in Hutchinson. There are several trees in that area that need to be trimmed. We posted the property to give the property owners a chance to trim them themselves. We're gonna go in, as a matter of fact, we're starting tomorrow in that neighborhood, and we're gonna start trimming the trees, get done before school starts so they don't rub the buses and whatnot.
This one's
We've been doing sidewalks and streets, trimming them back and fixing them up for school year.
Well, the one that's there, the one I'm complaining about, if that one limb comes down, we're going right back through what happened the first time. She don't want to spend the money, but yet she can go out there and buy a brand new vehicle, cost $7,000 worth of damage. It's 3/4 of the way across the road. We can't
So
even
Steve-
get the sweeper to come in and sweep it.
So we're gonna trim it and we put a lien on the property, is that what we're gonna do?
The ones that are in the public right of way, we trim.
This is not a public right of way.
And we don't charge anybody for that.
Okay, so this is a tree on private property.
If it's on private property, we don't have the ability to go on private property and take down trees.
Okay.
But you will,
Can I-
you will be able to trim it out of the public right of way, is that correct?
correct?
We will trim that portion that's in the public right of way. We can't legally enter on the private property and do work.
So Jim, is this a branch that's causing the angst, or you're saying that the whole darn tree should come down?
It's a
The whole
bunch of
tree.
branches.
Okay, so,
They're tearing up our buses, our trucks.
I'm not a tree expert, but that whole tree has to come down.
It's 3/4 of the way across the road. Rest of y'all wanna see it?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, once it's trimmed enough to keep it out of the road, it'll be about half a tree.
Okay, so I don't know the answer to this question. What is the city's policy, Steve, when there's a tree on private property that far in the road? Are you gonna trim that tree?
Yes, we are.
Okay, but you're not gonna take it down?
We won't take it down.
And I think that's absolutely.
The thing is, it's got that cable, fidelity cable. In them
That's why.
I'm not even sure the trunk is in the public right of way. What we do is we start at the curb and go up 15 feet and clear that.
Yeah, but that tree is overhanging the curb.
Right, and that part will come out up to a height of 15 feet.
Oh, it's all the way across on the other side of the street.
Okay, I'm just asking a question. It's overhanging the curb. Are you gonna go from the curb straight up and go whoosh?
And 15 to a height of 15 feet. Anything above 15 feet, no
Okay.
way.
So that's the answer then, Jim.
You know, I mean, I've been trying to, she's caused a lot of damage already. I've gone as far as took out all of my trees in my backyard. I'm putting up privacy fence. She don't want to spend the money, but yet she can go out and buy a brand new car and cost $7,000 worth of damage across the street.
We got the message. Steve's gonna trim that tomorrow. Let us know at the next council meeting whether that was sufficient or not.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, and thank you for the first responders.
Yeah.
For three y'all.
Any other
South
citizen
Florida, I know.
communication? Comments for the good of the order? We have, 2 items in closed session, both dealing with real estate. Is there a motion to go into closed session?
Second.
Motion made and second, roll call.
Henry,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Murphy,
Yes.
Williams, Schneider, Reuter. I said the wrong name. Roeder. My fault. Muse, Jones, Eberly, Schott, Reuter. Thank you.